The stars shone like distant diamonds against the black canvas of space. In the peaceful Aurelian system located in the Cygnus constellation, life had been gentle for thousands of years. The Aurelians, a race of tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that reflected the light of their twin suns, had never known true war. Their evolution on a stable, resource-rich world had led them toward art, philosophy, and telepathic communication, rather than weapons and defense systems. Mela, a senior member of the Aurelian High Council, stood before the great observation dome, her four-fingered hands trembling as she studied the data again. The readings couldn't be wrong. The Viridian Armada was 3 days away, a fleet of warships so vast it blotted out star systems on their long-range scanners. "They're coming for our crystalline forests and water reserves," said Zeth, the chief scientist. "Our scouts report they've already stripped 7 worlds bare in the neighboring systems." Mela closed her large almond-shaped eyes. "And we have nothing to stop them." The Aurelian Defense Force consisted of 30 small patrol ships meant to handle the occasional asteroid or lost spacecraft. Against the Viridians, a species evolved on a harsh world where killing or being killed was the daily reality, they stood no chance. "We must call for help," said Elder Pax, the oldest member of the council. "We must use the deep space transmitter." Silence fell across the council chamber. The deep space transmitter was their most powerful technology, capable of sending signals across vast distances, carrying not just words but emotions and images directly into the minds of receivers. They had never used it before. They had never needed to. "Who would answer?" asked Mela. "The nearest allied worlds are too far to reach us in time." Elder Pax moved to the center of the circular room, his aged skin barely containing the light that all Aurelians held within. "There is one species, new to the stars, fierce, protective, from a world so harsh that other species call it a death world." "Humans," whispered Zeth. "You mean humans?" "Yes," said Pax. "Earth is closer to us than our traditional allies. And humans understand fighting in ways we never could." The council voted unanimously. Within an hour, the great transmitter on the highest peak of their capital city powered up, sending a desperate cry across the stars, not just data, but the pure, emotional essence of their fear, their peaceful nature, and images of what would happen to their people if the Viridians arrived unchallenged. Captain Eric Donovan of the North American Space Coalition was finishing a routine patrol near Jupiter. When the signal hit, he was alone in the control room of the NASF Eagle, a mid-sized patrol vessel, when suddenly he wasn't alone at all. His mind filled with images of a beautiful world with pink skies and crystalline forests. He saw tall, graceful beings walking among spiral towers. Then came the terror, visions of massive ships, of burning cities, of a peaceful race facing extinction. Eric gasped and gripped the console as the flood of emotions nearly overwhelmed him. 20 years in space had not prepared him for this. These weren't just words or pictures. He felt their fear as his own, understood their peaceful nature, and their helplessness against the coming storm. "Computer, track signal origin," he commanded, his voice rough. "Signal origin, Cygnus constellation, approximately 73 light-years from current position," the computer responded. Eric's hand was already activating the emergency protocols. "Direct line to Earth Central Command, highest priority. Within minutes." The stern face of Admiral Susan Wright appeared on his screen. At 62, Wright had been among the first humans to command an interstellar vessel. The lines on her face told stories of both exploration and combat. "Captain Donovan." "Explain your emergency signal," she said. "Admiral, I've received something, unlike anything in our first contact protocols. A distress call, but not in words. Emotions, images directly into my mind. A peaceful species called the Aurelians is about to be attacked by someone called the Viridians. They're going to be wiped out without help." Wright's expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "We've had reports of similar signals from 3 other vessels in the outer system. The signal appears to have been broadcast widely." "Then, you know what I saw?" Eric said. "They need our help. They're completely defenseless." Captain, you know the complications here. We've been in interstellar space for less than 30 years. The Coalition is still debating our role in galactic politics. If we intervene in an alien conflict, with respect, Admiral, Eric interrupted, something he'd never done before. If you felt what I felt, you know there's no debate to be had. This isn't politics, it's genocide. Wright was silent for a moment. Return to Earth immediately, Captain. Full burn. I need you in the command briefing. 12 hours later, Eric stood in the great circular chamber of Earth Central Command in Geneva. The room was filled with military leaders, politicians, and scientists from the unified Earth government. President Linda Crawford sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her eyes sharp as she listened to the debate. Defense Secretary Olivia Martinez spoke firmly. We don't know enough about either species or their conflict. This could be a misunderstanding or even a trap. Our first major intervention in galactic affairs cannot be based on an emotional appeal. General Paul Blackwell, commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, disagreed. The signal has been analyzed by our best xenopsychologists. The Aurelians are genuinely peaceful and genuinely terrified. And we've had reports about the Viridians before. They're strip miners of the worst kind. They take what they want and leave dead worlds behind. Eric stood when called upon, describing exactly what he had felt when the signal reached him near Jupiter. He explained the images of destruction, the emotional weight of their plea. They know what we are, he finished. They know Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world by galactic standards. They know our history is filled with conflict, and still they reached out to us specifically. They believe we're their only hope. Dr. Sam Baker, the leading xenobiologist, added context. Humans evolved on a planet with extreme seasonal changes, powerful predators, and constant natural disasters. We developed aggression, innovation, and cooperation as survival mechanisms. The Aurelians evolved on a stable world with few threats. They developed telepathy instead of advanced weapons. Their psychology can't even comprehend the kind of violence the Viridians will bring. The debate continued for hours. The scientific community was divided. The military was eager to test their capabilities against alien technology. The diplomatic corps worried about the implications. Finally, President Crawford stood, silencing the room. I've listened to all sides, she said, her voice steady and clear. And I've made my decision. Throughout human history, we've fought wars, for land, for resources, for ideology. We've fought each other more often than we've helped each other. When we finally united and reached the stars, we promised ourselves we would be better out there than we were here. She looked around the room, meeting every eye. We didn't fight our way to the stars to stand by while innocents are slaughtered. The Aurelians asked for our help because they recognized something in us. Not just our capacity for violence, but our willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She turned to General Blackwell. Prepare the 7th Fleet for immediate deployment. We will answer this call. As the room erupted in activity, Eric caught the president's eye. She gave him a small nod. The Deathworlders were going to war again. But this time, they would fight for something beyond themselves. The massive hangar of Earth's orbital shipyard buzzed with activity. Sirens wailed as thousands of crew members rushed to their positions. The Distant Thunder Protocol had never been activated before. It was designed for one purpose: rapid, military response to a distant threat. Admiral John Rivers stood on the command deck of the EDF Valiant, the flagship of Earth's 7th Fleet. At 55, Rivers had silver hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of difficult decisions. He watched as the status screens turned green one by one. All 27 ships reporting ready for departure, Admiral, said his second-in-command. Rivers nodded. This is what we trained for. This is why Earth built this fleet. He turned to face the officers on his bridge. We launch in 30 minutes. We are about to make history as the first human fleet to engage in combat beyond our solar system. Lieutenant Commander Grace Howard checked her tactical systems for the 5th time. At 34, she was younger than most officers of her rank, but her ability to predict enemy movements had earned her quick promotions. People called it intuition. Grace knew it was just careful observation and pattern recognition. Your systems? Won't be any more ready if you check them again, said a voice behind her. Grace turned to see Chief Engineer Alan Kelly entering the tactical room. Kelly was a short, stocky man of 45 with thick arms and hands that seemed too large for his body. His innovations in drive technology had cut travel time between stars by nearly half. I like to be thorough, Grace replied, especially when we're facing an enemy no human has ever encountered before. The engines are ready, Kelly said. I've pushed the reactors to 110% capacity. We'll reach the Aurelian system in 72 hours instead of the standard 96. Grace smiled. That could make all the difference. The door opened again, and Dr. Lisa Vaughn entered. The xenobiologist was tall and thin, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She carried a tablet filled with information about the Aurelians. I've been studying the data we received from their distress signal, she said. The Aurelians are telepathic, which explains how they sent emotions and images rather than just words. Their society is built on harmony. They have no concept of war as we understand it, which is why they need us, Grace said. Exactly, Lisa agreed. They live on a world with stable weather, few natural disasters, and no large predators. Their evolution never required them to develop our aggressive instincts or military thinking. Alan shook his head. It's hard to imagine. No wars. No weapons. No fighters. That's what makes them easy targets for the Viridians, Lisa said grimly. From what little we know, the Viridians evolved on a harsh desert world with scarce resources. They see other species as either threats or assets to be used. The ship's intercom crackled. All senior officers to the briefing room. Departure in 15 minutes. Lieutenant Peter Rodriguez sat in the cockpit of his fighter, running through pre-flight checks. At 28, he was the youngest squadron, leader in the fleet, with a reputation for taking chances that others wouldn't dare. Some called him reckless. His commanders called him effective. His co-pilot, Sergeant Maya Foster, climbed into the seat behind him. Ready to make first contact. By blowing something up? She asked. Peter smiled slightly. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. Really, mister? Let me fly through that asteroid field is hoping for a peaceful resolution? I've got my reasons for being here, Peter said quietly. 5 years ago, he had lost his family when their civilian transport was attacked by pirates in the outer solar system. The trauma had pushed him to join the defense forces, channeling his grief into protecting others. Sometimes fighting is the only way to protect peace. Maya nodded, understanding in her eyes. Well, if it comes to fighting, I'm glad you're at the controls. The fighter bay hummed with energy as dozens of pilots prepared their craft. These weren't the sleek, beautiful ships of old science fiction. Human fighters were bulky, heavily armored, and packed with weapons. They were built by a species that understood war all too well. On the main deck of the Valiant, Admiral Rivers addressed the gathered officers. Behind him, a holographic display showed the Aurelian system. We will arrive here, he said, pointing to the outer edge of the system. Based on the Aurelian distress signal, the Viridian fleet will approach from this vector. Our plan is to position ourselves between the Viridians and the Aurelian homeworld. He gestured, and the display showed the projected positions of the Earth fleet. The Aurelians have provided what information they have about Viridian technology. Their ships are heavily armed with energy weapons we haven't seen before. They favor overwhelming force, attacking in large numbers. They've never encountered significant resistance before, Lieutenant Commander Howard spoke up. So they've never had to develop complex tactics. They rely on superior firepower and numbers. Exactly, Rivers said. And that's our advantage. We may be outnumbered, but Earth military doctrine has been refined through thousands of years of conflict. We know how to fight smarter, not just harder. Dr. Vaughn stepped forward. Admiral, with your permission. When Rivers nodded, she continued. I want everyone to understand what's at stake here. The Aurelians are not just peaceful. They're empathic. They feel each other's pain. The psychological impact of violence against their people is magnified. They reached out to us because, despite our violent history, or perhaps because of it, They believe we can protect them. Rivers nodded solemnly. Thank you, Doctor. Let me be clear. This mission is not just a test of our military capabilities. It's a test of our humanity. We're traveling across 73 light years to protect a species that cannot protect itself. This is who we are now. This is the purpose humanity has found among the stars. The room was silent for a moment. All hands to launch positions, Rivers ordered. We depart in 5 minutes. The Earth fleet moved away from the orbital shipyard in perfect formation. 27 ships of varying sizes, from the massive Valiant to smaller, faster destroyers and specialized support vessels. Together they represented the most powerful mobile force humans had ever assembled. On Earth, crowds gathered to watch the live streams as the fleet prepared to enter FTL. President Crawford stood at the main control center in Geneva, watching the final countdown. Godspeed, Admiral Rivers, she said, knowing her words were being transmitted to the fleet. You carry the hopes of Earth and the fate of the Aurelians with you. Admiral Rivers acknowledged from the bridge of the Valiant. We won't let either world down, Madam President. The countdown reached 0. The massive engines of the Earth fleet glowed blue, then white, then a color human eyes couldn't quite process. Space itself seemed to bend around the ships, and then, in a flash of light, they were gone. The journey had begun. During the 3-day journey to the Aurelian system, the crews trained relentlessly. In simulation rooms throughout the fleet, officers faced virtual Viridian attacks based on the limited intelligence they had. On the Valiant, Lieutenant Commander Howard worked with the tactical teams from all 27 ships, developing strategies for different scenarios. The Viridians have never faced a coordinated military response, she explained to her team. Their ships are powerful but predictable. They rely on brute force, not finesse. Chief Engineer Kelly worked with his teams to modify the shields based on what they knew of Viridian weapons. Their energy weapons operate on frequencies we haven't seen before, he told his engineers. We need to adapt, or our shields will fail in the first volley. Dr. Vaughn continued to study the Aurelian data, preparing the fleet for their first true alien contact. They will be able to sense our emotions, she warned the senior staff. They'll feel our determination, our fear, our resolve, and will need to be prepared for the emotional impact of their gratitude and relief. Throughout the fleet, a mixture of tension and purpose could be felt. Humanity had spent millennia fighting each other. Now, for the first time, they would fight for someone else. On the last night before arrival, Admiral Rivers couldn't sleep. He stood in the observation deck, watching the strange patterns of light that indicated FTL travel. He thought about the enormous responsibility on his shoulders. Trouble sleeping, Admiral? Dr. Vaughn had entered quietly. Rivers smiled slightly. Just thinking about tomorrow, about what we might face. You're worried we might fail? I'm worried about the cost of success, Rivers said honestly. I've studied every war in human history. Victory always comes with a price. Dr. Vaughn nodded. The Aurelians understand that too. That's why they reached out to us specifically. They sensed that humans understand sacrifice in a way they never had to learn. As they spoke, the fleet continued its journey through the darkness, between stars, carrying with it humanity's capacity for both destruction and protection. Tomorrow, they would arrive at the Aurelian system. Tomorrow, they would face an enemy that had never encountered Deathworlders before. Tomorrow, humanity would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The Earth fleet emerged from FTL travel at the edge of the Aurelian system. The bridge of the Valiant hummed with tense energy as the crew took in their first view of alien worlds. 3 planets orbited a pair of stars, one blue-white, one orange. The third planet, with its swirling pink and purple atmosphere, was the Aurelian homeworld. Admiral Rivers stood from his command chair. Status report. Scanners show multiple large vessels approaching from the opposite side of the system, reported Lieutenant Commander Howard. Matching the profile of Viridian warships, they'll reach the Aurelian homeworld in approximately 40 minutes. And our position? We can intercept in 30 minutes if we move now. Rivers nodded. All ships, battle formation Delta, maximum speed. As the Earth fleet moved deeper into the system, Dr. Vaughn approached the Admiral. Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the Aurelian High Council. They've detected our arrival. Put them through. The main screen flickered, and the image of a tall, slender being appeared. Its skin seemed to glow from within, shifting between soft blues and purples. Large, almond-shaped eyes studied the humans with surprise and hope. I am Elder Pax of the Aurelian High Council, the being said, its voice melodic and calm despite the circumstances. You have answered our call for help. We did not know if you would come. Admiral Rivers stepped forward. I am Admiral John Rivers of Earth. We received your distress signal and have come to assist you against the Viridian threat. Relief washed over Pax's features. The Viridians approach. Their fleet is larger than we anticipated. They will show no mercy. Neither will we if they force our hand, Rivers replied. Please keep your people as safe as possible. We will handle the Viridians. As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Admiral, fighter squadrons are ready for launch. Hold position for now, Rivers ordered. Let's see how the Viridians respond to our presence first. The Viridian fleet was an impressive sight. 53 warships of varying sizes, their hulls dark and angular, covered with weapon emplacements. They moved in a simple formation, a battering ram aimed at the heart of Aurelian civilization. When they detected the Earth fleet, they paused. This was unexpected. The Aurelians had no military allies that the Viridians knew of. On the bridge of the Viridian command ship, war leader Krax studied the strange vessels that had placed themselves between his fleet and their prey. What species are they? He demanded. His intelligence officer consulted the database. Unknown, war leader. The design suggests... Wait, these may be human vessels. From Earth. Humans? Krax's 4 eyes narrowed in their sockets. The Deathworlders, what are they doing here? Unknown. We have no record of alliance between humans and Aurelians. Krax growled, a sound that made his subordinates step back. It doesn't matter. They are few, and we are many. The Aurelians must have promised them something valuable. Open a channel. On the Valiant, Rivers received word of an incoming transmission. The Viridian command ship is hailing us. On screen, Rivers ordered. The image of war leader Krax filled the display. Viridian was massive with thick gray skin, 4 yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. He wore ornate armor that seemed to be made of metal and bone. I am war leader Krax of the Viridian expansion fleet, he growled. You have placed yourselves in our path, humans. This is not your concern. The Aurelians are our rightful conquest. Move aside and we will allow you to leave unharmed. Rivers stood tall. I am Admiral John Rivers of Earth. The Aurelians requested our help, and we have answered. We will not move aside. We suggest you withdraw from this system immediately. Krax laughed, a harsh grating sound. You are outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. Your ships are smaller than ours. What makes you think you can stand against us? Rivers smiled slightly. We're from Earth, war leader. A world that makes your home planet look like a garden paradise. We don't start fights if we can avoid them, but we finish them. Always. Krax's expression shifted to one of rage. Then you will die with the Aurelians. The transmission cut off abruptly. They're moving into attack formation, reported Grace Howard. Energy readings indicate they're charging weapons. Rivers turned to his bridge crew. All ships defensive positions. Fighter squadrons launch. Let's show them how Deathworlders fight. Lieutenant Peter Rodriguez felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as his fighter shot out of the Valiant's launch bay. Around him, 50 other fighters deployed, forming up into their squadrons. Eagle Squadron on me, he called over the comm. Remember your training. These aren't pirates or smugglers. Stay tight, stay focused. The Viridian ships began firing first. Brilliant beams of red energy lanced across space toward the Earth fleet. The human vessels' shields flared blue as they absorbed the impacts. Admiral Rivers watched calmly. Return. Fire. Target their lead vessels. The Earth ships responded with a combination of energy beams, missiles, and railgun fire, a mix of technologies that reflected humanity's tendency to pursue multiple solutions to any problem. The first volley struck the Viridian ships, and for a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then explosions blossomed along the hull of one of the larger vessels. "Direct hit," reported Howard. "Their shields appear to be specialized against energy weapons, but less effective against kinetic impacts." Rivers nodded. "Adjust targeting parameters. Focus railguns on their larger ships." In space, the fighter squadrons engaged the smaller Viridian vessels. Peter Rodriguez led his squadron in a tight formation, weaving between enemy fire with precision born from countless drills. "They're flying in straight lines," he told his pilots. "They've never faced fighters that can outmaneuver them. Use that, Eagle." Squadron split into pairs, each targeting a Viridian frigate. Peter and Maya approached from below, firing a burst of missiles before rolling away from the return fire. "Their targeting systems are slow," Maya called out. "If we keep moving, they can't lock on effectively." Across the battlefield, human fighters demonstrated maneuvers developed from centuries of aerial and space combat on and around Earth. The Viridians, used to overwhelming stationary targets or slower vessels, found themselves unable to counter the humans' tactics. On the Valiant's bridge, Chief Engineer Kelly reported from engineering. "Their energy weapons are straining our shields. Admiral, we can't take sustained fire for more than 20 minutes. Rivers considered this. "Lieutenant Commander Howard, what do you see in their attack pattern?" Grace studied the tactical display. "They're not adapting. They're using the same approach they started with, just with more intensity. It's like they don't know how to change tactics mid-battle." Rivers smiled. "Then we'll show them something they've never seen before. Signal all ships. Jupiter storm maneuver." The Earth fleet suddenly broke formation, each ship moving in seemingly random directions. To an observer, it would appear chaotic, but each movement was precisely calculated. The Jupiter storm maneuver had been developed for navigating the intense, unpredictable storms in gas giants. Applied to battle, it made the Earth ships nearly impossible to target effectively. The Viridian fleet, still in its rigid formation, couldn't adjust quickly enough. Their fire became scattered and ineffective as they tried to track the erratic movements of the Earth vessels. On the Aurelian homeworld, Elder Pax and the High Council watched the battle through their observation systems. They had never witnessed combat on this scale before. "They are fighting for us," whispered Mela, her voice filled with wonder. "These humans are risking their lives for people they've never met." Pax nodded. "They are unlike any species we have encountered. Their minds burn with an intensity I have never felt before. They understand violence in ways we cannot comprehend, yet they use that understanding to protect, not to destroy." Back in space, the battle reached a critical moment. The Earth fleet had damaged several Viridian vessels, but the sheer number of enemy ships was beginning to tell. The Valiant shuddered as a powerful beam struck its port side. "Port shields down to 20%, reported an officer. "2 of our destroyers are reporting significant damage." Rivers assessed the situation. "We need to force a decisive moment. Lieutenant Rodriguez, can your fighters get close to their command ship?" Peter's voice came through clearly. "Yes, sir, but their point defenses are heavy. We'd need a distraction." "You'll have it. Chief Kelly, are those shield modifications ready?" From engineering, Kelly's voice was strained but confident. "Ready enough, Admiral. We can redirect all power to forward shields for about 3 minutes. After that, we'll be vulnerable." Rivers nodded. "That's all the time we need. All capital. Ships, prepare to engage the Viridian center. Fighter squadrons, stand by to attack their command vessel when we create an opening." The Admiral stood in the center of his bridge, his expression determined. "Begin the attack run." The Earth fleet reformed into a spear formation with the Valiant at its tip. With shields concentrated forward, they drove directly toward the center of the Viridian fleet, absorbing the enemy fire as they went. It was a move of such apparent recklessness that the Viridians were momentarily stunned. No species they had ever encountered would dare such a frontal assault against superior numbers. But the humans weren't suicidal. They were creating an opportunity. The Viridian command ship listed to one side, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Lieutenant Rodriguez pulled his fighter into a tight turn, avoiding the explosions that bloomed across the massive vessel's hull. "Eagle Squadron, form up, and prepare for another pass," he ordered. But before his fighters could regroup, something unexpected happened. The remaining Viridian ships began to break formation. Without orders from their command vessel, their rigid battle structure collapsed. Some continued firing wildly, while others began to pull away from the battle. "Admiral," Grace Howard reported from the Valiant's tactical station, "the Viridian fleet is losing cohesion. Their command structure appears to be failing." Admiral Rivers watched the tactical display with careful eyes. "Press the advantage. All ships target their retreating vessels. Don't let them regroup." The Earth fleet moved with practiced precision, each ship focusing fire on different targets. The Viridian ships, already confused by the loss of their command vessel, could not coordinate their defenses effectively against the humans' fluid tactics. War Leader Crack stumbled through the smoking bridge of his flagship. Alarms blared as systems failed around him. "Retreat," he growled to his communications officer. "Order all ships to withdraw and regroup at the rally point." But it was too late. The Earth fleet had positioned itself to cut off easy escape routes. The Viridians would have to fight their way past the humans to retreat. On the Aurelian homeworld, the High Council watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned. Never in their history had they witnessed such combat, such determination in the face of overwhelming odds. "The humans are winning," Mela whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're driving the Viridians back." Elder Pax nodded slowly. "But at what cost? I can feel their losses, their pain, even from here. They are sacrificing much for people they have never met." The battle raged for another hour. The Earth fleet lost 3 smaller vessels completely, and most of the remaining ships suffered significant damage. Lieutenant Rodriguez had only half his original fighter squadron left. The Valiant's port side was scarred from multiple direct hits with several decks exposed to space. But the Viridians fared far worse. Over 30 of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest, including their damaged command ship, were in full retreat, fleeing the system as quickly as their engines could carry them. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Rivers finally allowed himself to sit down. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead where he'd been thrown against a console during the height of the battle. "Status report," he ordered, his voice hoarse from hours of giving commands. "The Viridian fleet is in full retreat, Admiral," Grace Howard reported. "Our long-range sensors show them heading toward their territory. I don't think they'll be back anytime soon." "And our fleet?" Chief Engineer Kelly's voice came over the comm. "We've lost the Defiant, the Courageous, and the Sentinel completely. Most other ships are reporting damage between 30% and 60%. The Valiant's drive system is operational, but we've lost a third of our weapons and shield capacity." Rivers nodded. Grimly. "Casualties?" Dr. Vaughn stepped forward, her medical uniform stained with blood. She had been helping in the medical bay during the battle. 243 confirmed dead across the fleet, Admiral. Over 400 injured. 86 critically." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. They had won, but victory came at a price. "Contact the Aurelian High Council," Rivers finally said. "Tell them their world is safe." 3 days later, a solemn ceremony took place in the great crystal plaza of the Aurelian capital city. The pink sky overhead was clear, and the twin suns cast dual shadows across the gathered crowd. Humans and Aurelians stood together as Elder Pax spoke, his melodic voice carrying across the silent plaza. "Today we honor those who gave their lives, so that our people might live," he said. "Though our species are different in many ways, we are united in our gratitude and our grief." 243 lights rose slowly into the air, each representing a human life lost in the battle. The Aurelians had created the lights to contain a small part of the emotional essence of each fallen crew member, gathered from the memories of their comrades. Admiral Rivers, standing with his surviving officers, watched the lights ascend. The Aurelians' telepathic abilities had allowed them to create a memorial that felt deeply personal, a gesture that bridged the gap between their different species. After the ceremony, the Aurelian High Council met with the Earth officers in the Great Dome of their government center. The meeting was not just to express thanks, but to discuss the future. "We wish to formalize an alliance between our worlds," Elder Pax said. "The Viridians will return eventually, perhaps with a larger force. We need time to develop our own defenses, and we wish to learn from humanity." Admiral Rivers nodded. "Earth would welcome such an alliance, and I believe there is much our peoples can learn from each other." Mela, who had been studying the injured humans in their medical facilities, stepped forward. "We have already begun to share our healing technologies with your medical staff. Our regenerative techniques can help your wounded recover more quickly than your current methods allow." Dr. Vaughn smiled. "Your medical knowledge is remarkable. Combined with our emergency trauma procedures, we could save many lives in the future." "This is just the beginning," said Elder Pax. "Our strengths complement each other. Your determination and tactical thinking, our empathy and healing arts. Together, we can be something new in this galaxy." News of the battle spread quickly through the nearby star systems. Species that had feared or avoided the Viridians for generations now spoke of the humans who had stopped them. The story grew with each telling, how a fleet of Deathworlders had traveled across space to protect a peaceful people they had never met before. On a distant world, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The 7 elder species that guided interstellar relations now faced an unexpected situation. "These humans were barely noticed when they first achieved interstellar travel," said Counselor Vrax of the Tellarite Confederation. "Now they have decisively defeated the Viridians and formed an alliance with the Aurelians. We must reevaluate their place in our community." "They are dangerous," warned Counselor Drem of the Saurian Directive. "Their capacity for violence exceeds most known species." Counselor Jen of the Alderan Unity raised a hand for silence. "Yes, they are dangerous, but they chose to use that danger to protect, not to conquer. This is significant. The humans could have ignored the Aurelian plea, or they could have conquered the Aurelians themselves after defeating the Viridians. They did neither." The council chamber fell silent as the members considered this. "Perhaps," Jen continued, "we have found something rare in the humans, a species that understands both war and peace and knows the value of each." Captain Eric Donovan, who had received the original distress call near Jupiter, now stood in an Aurelian school surrounded by curious children. Their large eyes watched him with wonder as he showed them a hologram of Earth. "Your people saved us," said one small Aurelian, her skin glowing a soft blue. "Our parents say humans are our guardians now." Eric smiled gently. "We're your friends. That's even better than guardians." On the Viridian homeworld, a different meeting took place. War Leader Krax, demoted but still alive, addressed the Viridian High Command. "The humans fought like nothing we have encountered before," he reported. "They adapted during battle. They used formations we could not predict. They were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect aliens they had never met." The Supreme Commander leaned forward. "Are they a threat to the Viridian Empire?" Krax considered his answer carefully. "They are a threat only if we make them one. They did not pursue us after the battle. They did not seek to destroy us completely when they could have. They only wanted to protect the Aurelians. What do you suggest then? Study them, learn from them, and perhaps consider them as potential allies rather than enemies. The galaxy is changing. Perhaps we must change as well." Admiral Rivers and Elder Pax stood on a balcony overlooking the Aurelian capital as engineers from both species worked together below. Humans teaching Aurelians about defensive systems, while Aurelians showed humans their advanced communication technology. "Why?" Pax asked simply. "Why would your people risk so much for those you never met?" Rivers watched a group of human and Aurelian children playing together in a park below. "Because that's what makes us human," he said softly. "We spent centuries fighting each other. Now we've found a better use for those skills." As the twin suns set, casting the city in golden light, a small Viridian scout ship watched Earth from a distance. Inside, observers debated whether to seek revenge or alliance with these unexpected Deathworlders who had answered a cry for help with a fleet of ships and the courage to use them, the galaxy would never be quite the same again.